Hey tankers, and welcome back to World of Tanks with PR154, where today we are following old mate of the LeBeau clan in the premium tier 8 American heavy tank M6A2E1, also known as the Mutant. Now, this is a tank with a bit of a controversial history. It was available for pre-order prior to World of Tanks' launch in April 12, 2011, but it did end up returning to the premium shop in 2017, under perhaps an inference that it wouldn't ever return to sale. But I guess 6 years into the game's existence, could they have foreseen that they were still going to be releasing new content? I don't mind giving them a pass on this particular one. But we'll get into the minutiae of the tank a little bit further in this video. For now, let's get into the play-by-play, and as most battles pan out, the first encounter is generally between lights, in this case two Lynx 6x6s. Now they've got the high explosive loaded. These vehicles do have quite powerful high explosive rounds, and they're using them to phenomenal effect against each other. There's a few swings and misses going on here, but that is kind of to be expected for the nature of fast-moving combat that occurs in a wheeled light tank duel. It looks like the friendly does have the edge over it. They've managed to get an extra hit, but the enemy STA-1 has now joined the fray, reinforcing the enemy Lynx 6x6 that's now quite one-shottable. So is ours, and it goes down to the STA-1. But Devastator 2's Kampfpanzer 7RH has been providing Overwatch. Devastator 2 has actually provided a lot of the footage that enabled us to capture the events on the eastern side of this map. So I guess it's only appropriate that their first scene involves shutting down the enemy Lynx 6x6. Returning to old mate in the Mutant, they are pushing forward and they're doing away with the cover of the factories. They're just going straight for it, and they're very confident in the performance of their armour at this tier, and I guess they have every right to be. 191mm is the frontal hull armour here, which effectively gives you 255mm by the time you take into account the height of the vehicle. The lower frontal plate is counterintuitively even stronger at 280mm, so attempts to engage that are often going to end up in disappointment. Your turret facing also achieves a minimum of 230mm protection, and a whopping gun mantlet offering a minimum of 460mm of protection where it overlaps the turret armour. Although there's some cheek plates on both the turret and hull that will become a little bit pennable when the vehicle normalises, your armour will stand up incredibly well in a frontal poke. Speaking of pokes, we have a friendly Centurion 5-1 that's overextended, has fallen foul of a 53 TP and IS-22, with the IS-22 taking the kill. But old mate is on station and sends the IS-22 back to the garage. The enemy 53 TP has realised it's in a bit of a crossfire here from the Kampfpanzer 7RH and old mate, so they do pull back outside of the factory with old mate in hot pursuit. Old mate goes for the forward poke, having absolutely no trouble bouncing the 122mm from the 53 TP. In return, their 105mm gun is returning 320 hit points per shot on average. Now they have gone for an all gold loadout, and that will give them 245mm of penetration with the APCR. That's a considerable upgrade from the nominal 204mm of penetration. Gun accuracy dispersion is not a strong point of this vehicle, however. You get 0.38 meters per 100 meters as an absolute minimum, and the dispersion factors are quite high. But still, more than adequate for engaging and penetrating 53 TP at this range. And as the enemy 53 TP retreats from this onslaught that old mate has inflicted upon it, the enemy Progetto 54 spies out IS-22 and rounds them out with their autoloader before bravely pushing on old mate. Now, for all intents and purposes, old mate looks like they're a bit outnumbered here. Yes, there's the one-shottable 53 TP downrange, Progetto 54's bearing down, 122 TM has also moved into support at Progetto 54's previous position. But neither of these enemy vehicles are making a dent in old mate so far. And of course, nothing good ever comes from saying so far so good, and eventually Progetto 54 finds its mark. And there's probably a combination of factors there. Once the turret starts to display a little bit of eccentricity, even 10 to 12 degrees, you start to get a normalising of the turret cheeks, so that can become penetrable from even a very narrow band of crossfire. So sensibly, old mate has pulled back so that they're not exposed to crossfire, they're just engaging 122 TM. Over on the eastern flank, things are not looking great for the AMBT. Now, despite having a very healthy squadron of tank destroyers in behind them, they are on very low hit points, certainly within kill range of a Barask, which, let's face it, 720 hit points is in the kill range for Barask. And it's certainly doing what it does best on that flank. Return to old mate now. The 122 TM downrange of him doesn't want to play, so he's going to reposition to rejoin the team, who are well engaged with the enemy. See, the M3Y is able to spot and snot the 53 TP that old mate was bullying earlier, but the friendly 53 TP has gone down rather promptly in return. Old mate revs up and crosses the gap, fully prepared to eat a few shells on the way through, but as it turns out, as a Progetto 54, it wasn't even pointed at him. Now, he's able to get to hard cover before Progetto 54 can engage, and now he's got the advantage here. He's got the forward poke situation on Progetto 54, bounces it and returns them to their maker. Now that was Old Mate's second kill for this game, and it looks like there's a lot of potential here to collect a few more. A lot of these enemy vehicles on a very low hit point position. Old Mate enters the factory and 122 TM on less than 100 hit points is shut down. Turns and faces Skoda T-56. There's a swing and a miss from the enemy Skoda T-56. Does it have another round in the tube? Doesn't matter. Old Mate has sent it packing as well. Now, in the course of all this madness, Old Mate's actually knocked over a personal campaign mission, specifically HT-6, a 2-course meal for T-55A, and completed it with honours. Primary condition being to destroy 3 enemy heavy or medium tanks, and honours to cause 2,000 hit points of damage to enemy vehicles. And he is hungry for more, pressing on the enemy VK100, but it's the Skoda T-56 that ends up securing the kill. Quick battlefield assessment now, and it looks like things are looking up for Old Mate's team. They are 3 guns in the advantage. They've absolutely smashed the enemy here in the factory sector. However, things not looking so good on that eastern flank, with the team being pushed back to that A0 pocket. But that's not to say things are a disaster there or unrecoverable by any stretch of the imagination. We can see Kampfpanzer 7 RH is actually pushed on the enemy step there, and you can see that he's got the Stridsvagn S1 under a proximity spot. So that's going to help. So while it's probably got some hard cover to hide behind, it's still going to render it a non-participant in the fight for the time being. And even though a UDES-3 is perfectly capable of fighting from that A0 position, there isn't a lot of hard cover there, as we can see from events earlier in the battle. And something like the Barask is going to be more than capable of outspotting it and directing fires accordingly. But there is an implacable advance heading the enemy's way, so whatever they want to do, they're going to have to act fast. We can also see the Skoda T-56 and M3Y are approaching the cap circle, which will simply hand battlefield initiative to Old Mate's team, such that if they don't secure victory by killing everyone, they are sure to win by cap out if the tankers involved can hold their nerve. Of course, the fact that the enemy team is outnumbered nearly 2 to 1, it does make their job a lot harder, but having said that, they are not that far apart on hit points. Although, that could simply be a function of the fact that a lot of these vehicles haven't been in Old Mate's radio range before, and as such, they are not getting that information as to where the hit points are of those enemy vehicles in real time. That hit point counter may drop away as these enemy vehicles become visible. Certainly treating that bush with suspicion, and rightly so, however, an enemy ISU 152 that needs to be dug out of that defensive position. Stridsvagn S1 also emerging up top and resetting the cap and also zeroing out the hit points of M3Y. Kampfpanzer 7 RH, operated by Devastator 2, is engaging ISU 152. They managed to get in behind it, but certainly a much friendlier spot to be than in front of the 152mm gun, as Old Mate was. He's taking quite a heavy hit from the ISU 152K, but Devastator 2 takes care of business here. Old Mate has pushed on, I guess confident that Devastator 2 was going to be able to deal with the ISU 152K. He gets a shot into Stridsvagn S1. Stridsvagn S1 still 2-shottable here. His platoon mate, the Doctor, going in for the ram with KV5, certainly something that the vehicle is renowned for. Unfortunately, the ram doesn't quite pay off, and Stridsvagn S1 managed to get a shot off at the last minute, with Old Mate taking the kill ultimately. Continuing the advance, Old Mate engages Lorraine 40T, getting another penetrating hit, leaving it very much one-shottable. Kampfpanzer 7 RH on 22 hit points remaining decides to take a more circuitous route and get the flank, but is ending up doinked by the Scorpion G right in the face. Of course, that's certainly not something you want to see when you're round a corner, but at least Skoda T-56 is a little bit more prepared for it. It rounds the corner and it manages to get the jump on Scorpion G instead. This just leaves Lorraine 40T that Old Mate had bloodied rather significantly earlier on, but UDES-3 is also in hot pursuit. Of course, UDES-3 has the better concealment, it has the better view range, and that's what comes into play. UDES-3 that ends up repositioning, engaging, and knocking out the Lorraine 40T first. So that is a win for Old Mate of the LeBeau clan in M6A3, the Mutant. Let's take a look at the results. So ladies and gentlemen, that was an Ace Mastery Badge for Old Mate of the LeBeau clan in the premium Tier 8 American heavy tank M6A2E1 Mutant. We got it this time. So Ace Mastery Badge will place you as the top 1% of tankers in that vehicle for the preceding week. He's picked up a couple of other battle achievements as well. He's got the Steel Wall Medal for receiving the most hits, which needs to be at least 11 out of any player on the team, and also has to survive. He's picked up the High Caliber Medal for accounting for at least 20% of the total hit point pool of enemy vehicles, with over 4,300 hit points of damage inflicted. He's also picked up the Fighter Medal for destroying at least 4 enemy vehicles, in this case the upper limit of that, 5, unfortunately missing out on a couple of kills there, so he certainly had a Top Gun medal on the table there as well. He's got the shell-proof metal for total damage blocked exceeding the hit points of his vehicle, in this case over 3,400 blocked. So tremendous damage, tremendous blockage, and certainly something that M6A2E1 is quite capable of doing, especially in a forward poke situation, as we saw earlier. He's also picked up the bruiser metal for causing damage to enemy vehicle modules or crew members at least 5 times in the course of the battle, in this case 6, and picked up the duelist metal for destroying at least 2 enemy vehicles that had caused damage to his vehicle in turn. Looking to the team scores, this was a double header between Old Mate and the Doctor, both of the LeBeau clan. The Doctor, of course, in KV5, who met his end in front of a Struzvan S1 earlier in the game. Old Mate topping out the list, however, with roughly 40% more hit points than the next taker, being the Doctor, and then Spider 4929 in UDES 03 picking up 4 kills, inflicting over 2200 hit points of damage, most likely fighting from that A0 position. We didn't see too much of them in the early mid game, just we didn't have the camera coverage, but certainly making a solid contribution and clearing out that 9-0 flank, looking to be in a little bit of trouble there through the mid game in particular. Shout out on the enemy team to Slade333 in the Skoda T-56, nearly 2800 hit points of damage inflicted, managed to take a kill there, and Bengal Raven in GSAW 1008, 2300 hit points. Again, another vehicle we didn't see too much of, just out of our coverage that particular game. Having a look to the detailed report, this was quite a profitable outcome for Old Mate here, despite running an all-gold ammunition loadout. The ammunition bill was quite significant, however, over 110,000. There was a consumables resupply there that also put a bit of a dent in it. Thankfully, he did have a 68k personal reserves bonus that was contributing here, but once you take that out of it, we're probably only talking a 15,000 credit profit outside of that personal reserves bonus. But I guess he was firing the shots, he was hitting, he was penning, he was taking damage, and I guess you're always going to earn more credits off a premium shell that penetrates as opposed to a standard shell that doesn't cut the mustard. So that's it from me, tankers. Thanks very much, Old Mate, for sending this one in and giving us an opportunity to feature a very unusual and not often seen premium vehicle. Of course, yeah, there was a bit of controversy when this thing was released, but you get that. Now we're starting to reach the end of our community submitted replays that we're featuring directly onto YouTube. Of course, we are still taking community submitted replays and we are putting them on our Twitch streams and hopefully getting you in to talk through what was going through your mind and down your barrel. And those interviews we're also converting into YouTube, which you might have seen going up on the channel as well. So if you want to get behind that, check out the link in the description below to my Discord and we can hopefully talk some tanks. In the meantime, happy tanking and take care out there.